I want to open this up because Cashify just doesn't get it. You don't get it, Cashify, and I would like you to keep trying, but we'll see. I would engage in expectations if this wasn't the internet, but you just aren't getting this crucial distinction. Again, I don't think it requires you to accept anything other than I have a word I use a certain way, so then you could understand what I'm telling you. And it basically goes this: we have these analytic truths. They're pure, perfectly certain. You start out with certain principles, you get to certain conclusions that certainly follow. But then we have these synthetic things about reality, okay, that you have to see to know, okay? All right. And we take those as separate things, right? Traditionally, classically, not you and me, but classically. We're just describing the playing field. The problem is we mix these all the time. We take synthetic propositions we learn from observation, we feed them into this system that's based on, you know, pure truth or whatever. This certain logic and proofs. You know, the mathematical idea where you make these proofs. Okay. Why do we mix them? We have no explanation in our classical system to really explain why that's okay. It seems like it's not okay because the proof is to get a certain truth, and yet it's not certain when you apply it because the inputs are not certain. Okay, I have a solution to this. The classical solution is that we need two dimensions. These are two different things that add together to make productivity, and we get synthetic and analytic truths. We get, you know, this idea that there's this other orthogonal dimension to physics called metaphysics, and these logical systems go in there. Since we know in the real physics you never have certainties, you know, how about, okay, we'll put it in another world where there are certainties, a different world, because this can't be this one, because this one doesn't have certainties for us. Okay, I have an alternate solution to that, and the solution is based on how do you get what you might call a synthetic tautology. And the answer to that is you name something. Okay, you name something. The word existence is a good example. You name existence. You have a bunch of perceptions, let's call it. You're naming them that, and you're naming existence based on that. That's the name for existence. Whatever it turns out to be, a dream, whatever. You know, so reality can be defined that way, based on existence. Now, if existence itself turns out to be a dream, fine. Define a term really real. What's really real? Because I'm defining it based on our senses. That's the way we all use it. Okay. You know, there really was a volcano that went off in Iceland. You know, that's the way we use that word. You want to say, well, not really real because it was a dream. Fine. Real still means that. It's still true that it's real. It's not really real. Well, because you've put this qualifier that allows you to make another definition of really real. But I notice you don't do that. There's no examples of that. Okay. But when you name something, you create a tautology. But since you're naming a group of things, okay, it's based on experience. It's something you see. You see a bunch of horses. You name that phenomenon horse. Whatever a horse turns out to be. If it turns out to be a dream, a robot, a kind of a tree, a mirage of some sort, whatever it turns out to be, the horse exists, and that's what it exists as. And this links up. See, this allows us to talk about things because we can never know what you would call the intentional definition of existence. Like if I say the horse exists, and exists means the intentional thing, not that it's a phenomena and however it works it'll be called this, naming, but an analytic theory about what the phenomena means. Like for the horse to exist means it's a real object and it's tangible, or it's made of little tiny BB's atoms, or whatever you're going to define. Then when you say that, well, if life is a dream, that definition would fail, right? You can still say it based on your risk of if life is a dream. But I'm a skeptic. I don't want to start talking about the non-dreaminess of life at that level. At that level, you know, my epistemology survives if everything's a dream. Okay, because I have named existence and then studied it. Okay, I'm not asserting what it is and then checking to see if that's true. When I name, I'm simply naming a phenomenon. The phenomena is there. Can use this is one of my favorite examples. This is a good error of humankind. It bears a lot of thinking about. But the sunrise. Obviously, the sun doesn't move. Saying the sun rises implies it moves. It doesn't even actually have what we would call a relative motion, uh, in the sense that it's a rotational motion. Okay, so basically, the moon is still in terms of its the speed that it rises. It's not moving at that speed. It's not moving at any speed to do that. Okay, but we still say the sun rises, and it's because if that phrase, the sun rising, names a phenomena, then it still rises. It's just that by rise we mean looks like it rises while I stand on the earth and spin. Okay. If we interpret the sun rises as the intentional meaning of it's moving, it's actually moving up, then yeah, that's not true. And we all know that's not true, and yet we still talk about the sun rising. Why? Because at that point, it's a name of a phenomenon. And there's a historical reason we call it rising, and because it still appears to rise. Okay. And this is what we're talking about with all of these phenomena. You know, kids say things don't really exist. They exist. The question is as what? If you want to say as a dream, fine, you say that. You can say that. All is well. Then you want to go, therefore it doesn't exist. So it exists as a dream, therefore it doesn't exist. But one of your premises is it exists as, so therefore it exists. That's your problem. That's why you are contradicting yourself in the core principle that you present. So does anybody understand what I'm talking about? You can get, the question is analytically, you want to start with the tautology of some sort, right? So you could have all these principles that are like self-defining. But that's always been a problem. But when you name something, that's exactly what you have. It becomes true by definition. Okay, bachelors are male. There's blurry lines to this because there's blurry lines to our category. What do we put in the category of these things? Is still going to come down to our real world experiences. But what we do achieve is we achieve this tautology that bachelors are male. Then we can reason from that. We can use the pure analytic stuff of males need females to reproduce, therefore he's going to need a female to reproduce. Or, we can reason from it because the analysis, which is built to deal with truism, gets its initial truism. The initial truism is I'm calling all of this stuff that I'm perceiving existence. The fact that it's here, that's existence. So that becomes a tautology. Okay. And in truth, talking about anything existing is a tautology. Professor Anton was asking, what do possibilities do? And asking, if they exist, what they exist as. So they always exist as something. The question really, when we ask that we're really getting at, is this question of what is the material component? Because they always exist as something in the mind. And furthermore, the mind is material and embodied, so they always have a material component, the neurological framework that is generating them as an idea. But the question is, in addition to that system is trying to model something else, something material. Can we find that material? Okay, so and this is crucial. This is crucial because the skeptical epistemology does not depend on if life is a dream. It uses the argument that life could be a dream in order to break down dogmatic assumptions. But it doesn't assume that life is a dream. You understand, life could be a dream, so we accommodate that. But we don't have to accommodate that life is a dream because that's not necessarily true, and it's not clear what that means. Because by dream, you mean you're using a metaphor. If you talk about dreaming in our waking life, using a metaphor of the night dream, right? It's a metaphor. So what does that really mean? I mean, if we're in a big dream, but the laws of physics all apply, and materialism is still as valid, quantum mechanics works all, then what's it matter if we're in a dream? Okay, it matters to you because, yeah, it seems real, but it isn't really real. Then you have to define really real. You have to point at something that is really real, right? Because that's the final thing. You like to talk about this pointing thing. Don't look at the finger. The pointing is all we have, because to name something you have to point. You say the symbol and you point. It would be a big problem if we didn't have symbols. But you can tell if a dog points. Okay. How does that work out? How we didn't agree on what the symbol would be. How do we know that it means look over there? Luckily, we all have the same genes. And before we were all born, evidently for mammals, some amount of pointing symbology was built in so that we would understand it. Granted, another animal would point and indicate in a different way, but they could have that in common because they all start off as the same life form. So they choose a way of pointing, and break up and in some way, at least by principle,